So we're on 10-8, equations of circles. Then tomorrow you'll review the 9, everything that we've done this week, 9, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 1, 10, 8, and then unfortunately you'll have a test on Monday on that.
What's today, Thursday?
Today is Thursday, the 31st.
Ooh, I think so.
All right. Okay, equations of circles. So here we go. All right, just like there are like standard form equations for lines, like you had, I mean, you don't have to write this down, but just as reference, when you had standard form equations for lines, it was ax plus by equals c. That's back to math 1. And then you had let's see, that was a linear. The quadratic was ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. When you were graphing parabolas, that was a standard form for that. So this one is the line. Bless you. This one is the parabola, the quadratic, depending on what you called it. Quadratic. And now you've got an equation for a circle. So the circle equation, which is the way you want all your equations to be in. You've got x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's your standard form for a circle. HK is the center of the circle. It's a point. The center of the circle. And R is the radius. Yep. Now, you're going to need that distance formula again, so I'm going to write it up here. This is going to come back into play. Distance equals the square root. Anybody remember?
Not at all.
X 2 minus x1.
And subtract your x's, square them, plus
y2 minus
subtract your y's and square them. So that distance formula is going to come back into play again. So this you need to know. You always need to know this, that distance formula. It's always going to come back over and over and over. I feel like I got a tear in my card now. Can you go bathroom?
What?
Can you go bathroom?
No, because I don't have any eye drops. So I can't really do it.
I don't think I have any. I've always wear contacts, but I don't think. Nope, you don't want multi-purpose cleaner.
I do.
What are you planning on cleaning?
Nothing, I drank it.
Joseph, that's stupid.
Yeah, right now.
Do what?
Yeah.
What means Morrison do? Has everybody got this? Okay. All right, so in your skills practice. So 1 through 10, I'll say write the equation of the circle. So, but the first thing, let's go down to 11 and 12. Let's just start there. because those are simple ones. Let me, bless you. All right, so you've got 11 and 12 here. So those are the two equations that they have in on the book, or in the book. This one's 11 and this one's 12. All right, now remember, I'll write this over here. This is I'm just rewriting the circle equation. All right, so here's our standard equation. Bless you, what it looks like. In this one, what's being added or subtracted from x and y?
The H and the K.
But, I mean, are there any numbers that are being added or subtracted? Do you see anything added or subtracted, anything added or subtracted?
They're being
No.
squared.
Well, this is the same thing as this. So really what's being added or subtracted is 0, okay? So when you graph anything, you gotta know two things. You gotta know the center, you gotta know the radius, or to put the thing in the equation. So you first gotta decide, all right, what's the center? So the center is 0, 0. So in this equation, the center is 0, 0. And the radius, notice in the standard form equation, the radius is squared. So when they give it to you, what's the opposite of the square? Square root. You got to take the square root of that number. So the radius is the square root of 16, which equals 4. Okay?
Do we have to do this, or do we have to?
You don't have to show me this part when you're graphing it, because you're gonna. So on your graph, but these are the things that you'll need to write down. You know, what the center is, what the radius is. So you're going to put a dot at 0, 0, so there's the center. And then your radius is 4, so you're going to do 4 points. You're going to go right 4, left 4, up 4, and down 4. And connect the dots. And there's your circle. I always start with the easy ones, so don't get too happy yet. It really doesn't get, the hardest it gets is when you have to use the distance formula to find the radius. That's about it. Or you might have to do the midpoint. I should have put that one up there. I'll go back and put that one. Is everybody okay with this one?
Yep.
Alright, so next one. Now, you got to be careful here. Notice in the standard form equation, it's a minus already, correct? Okay, so all you're going to do on the center is just bring those numbers out. So it's not -1 and -4. The center is going to be
1/4.
1/4. Okay, it's the opposite of kind of what you think it is. It's not -1, -4, but it's 1/4. So if those were pluses in that equation, it would come out as a negative. Okay? And our radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. So then when you graph it, your radius is at 1/4. So you got a dot there on this radius. Your center's at 1/4, sorry. And then from there, you're going to go right 4, or 3, golly, right 3, left 3, down 3, and up 3. And draw your circle. Oh, okay. Oh, that's not. You ready? Listen, you good? Cindy, I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now let me backtrack up to the top of that page. So number, let's see, 1 through 6. Well, 1, 2, and 3 are really simple. Number 1 says centered at the origin. So what's the center? What's the origin's point?
0, 0.
0, 0. And the radius they give you is 6 already. So you're going to, when they give you a 0, 0, actually I kind of wrote that equation already.
Yeah.
You don't have to put in x minus 0, y minus 0. You can just leave it x squared, y squared. If you do, that's fine. So you're going to plug in 0, 0. So if you write it like this, that's okay. If you write it like this, that's okay. But that only works with zeros. So whichever way you want to write it, that's totally up to you. Now remember, when we put the radius in the equation, though, we square it. So 6 squared is going to be 36. And that's it. You're just writing the equation of the circle.
Is this gonna be another easy 100?
Well, I hope so, but we've not gone to the most difficult ones yet. But as long as you do distance and midpoint, you're okay. Is everybody good with 1?
Yeah.
All right, so 2, they give you, this time instead of saying at the origin, they say the center's at 0, 0. Just another way of saying the same thing. So number 2, if the center's at 0, 0, you can say x squared plus y squared, or x minus 0 squared, y minus 0 squared, whichever way you want to write it. And this time our radius is 2, but when we plug it in,
It'll be
2 squared
4.
is 4. Jackson, getting it? Okay. Jody, good? All right. Now number 3. See if you can write number 3 there. So you're plugging in the center and the radius, plugging in those numbers. And then remember, the center and then squaring the radius. I said it backwards again. Squaring the x and the y. Squaring the radius and plugging in the x and the y. How many different ways can I say it? So just try to see what you get.
What the coordinates there or something?
All you're doing is plugging that 4 and that 3 into that equation.
Okay.
And then you have to square the radius to put it in. So what you should have is this. The radius is 9, so that's your answer. So you plug in the 4 and the 3, and you square the 9.
Wait, square root the 9?
Square the 9.
Okay.
Square the 9. When you put it in the equation, you square it. When you take it out, you square root it. So are we okay with that one before we go further?
No.
Let me give you a different, okay, let's say, write me the equation of the circle. This is not in your skills practice. So write the equation of the circle that has center at 5, -2, and a radius of 5. So write the equation of the circle that's centered at 5, -2, and a radius of 5. And while you're writing that, I will be here again today after school, so if you need help, come and see me. Carly spent 2 days with me, I think. 2 days?
I'm coming next week.
Next week? Okay.
What do you mean by that?
I'm here to, if you need help. Carly's been working on the redos, and I think they're done homework, but it's been kind of simple. But we've done redos, haven't we? We've done redos. So.
After school?
Yep, after school.
or?
It's a 5, yeah. So she's done her redos, and now she's working on a redo test. And everybody has that option if you want to come by and do it. I'll be happy to help you. Everybody got some down? Some to try? Alright, so this should be x minus 5 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 25. Now, why is that one a plus? Because remember it's y minus, but it's y minus a negative 2, and those two make it plus. Okay? I need to do another one like that, or are you okay?
I think you should do another one, just square the radius.
When you're plugging it into the equation, you square the radius. When you're taking out of the equation, you square root it. Another one, Destin? Okay. All right, center at negative 1,486. 4. Radius of 20.
Is that negative
1,486. So a center at negative 1,486.4, comma 4, and a radius of 20. Don't make it hard. Don't make it hard. Just plug in the center, square the radius. So that's what you should have. So whatever your center is, remember it's the opposite sign. So that's going to be plus, that one will be minus. 20 squared is 400. Good? Okay, now moving on to number 4. Why did I say 4 is just a little bit more difficult? Because it gives you the diameter instead of the radius. But yesterday we learned the radius is what of the diameter? Half of it. So the radius is 24 divided by 2, half of the diameter. So the radius is really 12. So now you just plug it in. That's the only thing. Well, you got to square it, yeah. Plug in the center, square the radius. But that's the only thing that made that one a little bit more difficult, because they didn't give you the radius, they gave you the diameter. So you just got to be aware of those details. So you should get this. Plug in your center, x minus 7, y minus 1, square 12.
I think I'm fine with it, but how, like, which one was it that we square rooted it?
That was the very first one when we were working backwards. They gave us the radius. They gave us the equation, and we had to go backwards and find the center and the radius, and then do it. So when you're plugging in the equation, you square it. When you're coming out of the equation, you square root it. Okay?
Are most of them going to be like number 3, number 4?
Well, like 5 is easy. Y'all can do 5. Try 5. You've done one like 5. The only reason that one's a little bit more difficult is because they put a negative 5 in there, but you've already done one like that. So 5 you should be able to do, 6 you should be able to do, but they gave you a diameter. 6 is just like number 4. So try both of those real quick. See if you
They're
can
not
do
gonna
those.
give us one with the circumference, are they?
Well, you might have something with a circumference, not on this one.
Okay,
But I
they
mean,
built this
you-
lesson with that.
No, they shouldn't. But I mean, you could do it, because if they give you the circumference, you learned yesterday how to find the diameter or the radius. So you can, you could do it, but,
That's making a lot of scrap paper, a lot of.
well, you mean, you got your
Scrap
calculator.
paper.
You can handle it.
Yeah.
No, remember, we were working on being positive.
So, yeah, I guess.
Okay, well, that's better than, no, I can't. That was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're improving a little bit. By the end of this,
Sometimes it's just like being an ass.
well, I would agree. Don't we all though some days?
You don't be an ass some days, but it's so
Okay, Jesse, just do that.
I am.
All right, hush, just hush. All right, so I'm gonna put the answers up for 5 and 6, and let me know what you think. If I can see it. So 5, -5, 2. And the radius is 4, so, all right, so there's 5.
That's your answer?
Mm-hmm. We okay with 5?
Yeah.
Okay, 6.
I would think it'd be a lot harder than that.
How do you make it? Don't make it hard. Let's see, 6, -8. So, and 2, 5. Here's number 6. Square it. Yes, you take the 10, divide it by 2, and you get 5, and then square it at 5. So we good on those? Okay, so now 7, put your phone out, Jamie. 7,
Trying to figure out all my credits.
trying to figure out your what?
Credits, I'm a couple credits behind,
Oh.
so my mom's asking me if I got the forestry yet. That's
Oh.
kind of what.
Do what?
I tried to do this one. I got stuck.
6?
7.
Oh, okay. While I'm thinking about it, you 3 that were out yesterday, yesterday was when we registered, wasn't it? You gotta take your, I don't know if they told you already, but you gotta take your pink paper, sign to Mr. Forster or Miss Kay, and they'll register you.
Yeah. They said
So if they didn't tell you. Okay, so number 7. All right, so this time it says a circle with center at 8,4 and an end point at 0,4. All right, so here's where it's a little bit more difficult. So think about it. You've got this circle. I'm not going to draw it exactly, but you've got this circle, and it says it's at 8,4. And that there's an end point somewhere on the circle that's 0,4. Right?
Okay.
Does everybody understand that? Center's at 8,4, end point's at 0,4. Alright, so we need to know, we know this 2 things we gotta have, center and radius. They gave us the center, right? But we need to know the distance of the radius.
We're going to do minus the 8.
Okay, so we've got to find the distance of this using the distance formula. Okay, so we say the distance equals, remember it's the square root, subtract your x's, 8 minus 0 squared, plus subtract your y's, 4 minus 4 squared. I mean, you could put that all in your calculator, but it's pretty simple. 8 minus 0, 4 minus 4. So you get the square root of 8 squared is 64. And the square root of 64 is 8. Now we can put it in our formula.
Is that the radius?
That's the radius.
Oh my god.
That's the radius right there, 8. So the radius is 8. Now when we put it in the formula, which is what they ask for, we use our center, x minus 8 squared plus y minus 4 squared. Now we're going into the equation, so we're squaring the 8 to give you 64. The only thing they could do to make it harder was you find the distance of the diameter, and then you divide it by 2 to get the radius, and that's about as difficult as they're gonna give you. But are we okay on this one before I go to the next one?
If they asked you to find the diameter and you already have the radius, wouldn't you just times the radius by 2?
But they won't on this one, because you gotta have the radius, not the diameter. But like yesterday's, that's what we did. Anybody else on this?
Which 4 is it?
Yeah. What?
Which 4 did we use? It's on the last.
There's the center.
That one.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't seem that bad. It's a lot of writing.
It's just distance formula, and that's all it is.
Then we square root of 64.
I got this one? Alright, so, let's see, that was number 7. Alright, number 8. So it's the same thing. It gives you a center at -2, -7, and a radius with an end point at 0,7. So, I mean, it's the same thing. You don't have to draw this circle, but -2, -7, and the radius has an end point at 0,7. So that's the same thing you're doing. So you could actually go ahead and put x plus 2 squared, y plus 7 squared, get half of your circle formula done. And you've got your center. And then we just gotta do the distance formula to find our radius. So we would do, remember, subtract the x's, -2 minus 0, and -7 minus 7. Everybody okay where I put that in? Okay, so we've got -2 squared plus -7 minus -7, or minus 7 is 14 negative squared. So we get 4 plus, anybody know what 14 squared is? Is it 196? 196. Now right here, be careful. We get 200, right? Okay, if you take the square root of 200, is it a perfect square?
The square root of it?
Yeah, because you gotta take the square root. Is it a whole number? No. Okay, so when this comes up, like when you, what is it? It's 14 something, right? 14 point something, 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 something.
14.4.
When this happens, this is the trick. Don't do the square root of it. Don't make it a decimal.
Make a fraction?
No, just, what do we do to it when we put it in the equation? We square it, right?
No.
Okay, so when we do this, if I take the square root of 200 and I square it, what happens to the square root and the square? They cancel. So you're just left with 200. Well, the radius is 200, or the radius squared. The radius is not 200, but when you put it in the equation, it's 200. So when you're doing the distance formula, and you get one that's not a whole number, like when you do the square root, and it is not a whole number, put it in the formula with the square root symbol. Just leave it open because it's locked over here when it comes back. And then the square root and the square will cancel out, and you'll just be left with that number. Okay? Alright, so let's try another one here. Do we need to do 9? It's the same kind of thing. Okay. Alright, so we've got a center at -3,9 and radius with endpoint of 1,9. So again, you've got a circle, center's at -3,9. Radius with endpoint at 1,9. I mean, you don't have to draw that circle, I'm just doing it for a reference, so you'll see it. So again, do the distance formula. So the distance equals, subtract your x's, -3 minus 1, and square it. Subtract your y's. Actually, this one's easier than the other one. So -3 minus 1 is -4. 9 minus 9 is 0. And I don't really need to write 0 squared, but it's 0. So then -4 squared is 16. And the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so now use your center. Plug that one in. And remember, when I plug 4 in, 4 squared is 16. And if you notice, it's always going to be that number right there, because we square rooted it in 4, we squared it in 16.
So we literally don't even have to.
So
write
whatever
the
this number is with that square root, just take that number, that's what's going to go right there.
With that -4, do you do the square root and then the 2? Or just square it? Because -4 squared is -16.
No, if you put it in your if you do it like this, the calculator says 4 squared and then puts a negative on it. When it's really like this,
You have to remember the
you got to put the parentheses around it. To me, that's a flaw in the calculator. But the calculator says, okay, you want me to square 4 and then stick a negative on it. And it's the opposite way. So good that way? Alright, we've only got one more. Yeah. Alright, so last one. A circle whose diameter has endpoints. So the diameter we know goes through the center. Whose endpoints are -3, 0, and 3, 0. Okay, so they didn't give us the center or the radius. So this is the hardest one. They got to do two things.
So what do you have to do to substitute?
Now, we can do the distance formula on this, knowing that when we get to the end, what do we have to do to it? Divide by 2, because this is a diameter. Okay, so you can do that first. Or we can find the center, because this is the halfway point from here to here, right? We can find the center first, and then do the distance formula on the radius, whichever one you want to do. Now, do we remember midpoint formula? Midpoint formula, because we got to do the midpoint formula anyway to find the center.
Wouldn't it just be 0 between them all?
Well, it is, but we're gonna, because -3 is 0, but we're gonna have to do this because probably on your test, they're not gonna give you something that simple. But remember, the midpoint formula, you add the x's, divide by 2, add the y's, divide by 2. So when we add the x's, -3 plus 3, divided by 2, add the y's, divide by 2. Well, here's what Joseph was saying, -3 plus 3 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0.
But you can't divide 0 or...
You can't divide by 0. You can divide into, 0 can't be in the denominator.
Oh.
It can be in the numerator, can't be in the denominator. So your center is 0, 0.
It's root 53 then. It's radius of 53.
Yeah. So now you have the choice. You can use the distance formula on the diameter, using that point and that point, knowing that you got to divide by 2 when you get to the end of it, or you can do the radius with the distance formula. The only time I would say use the radius is when these are easy numbers. If these come out to be like fractions, I wouldn't use them. I would do the diameter and then divide by 2. But since they're 0, 0, it's pretty simple. So if you do the distance formula, and you say 0 minus 3, and 0 minus 0, then you get negative 3 squared and 0 squared, which is just 9. Remember, square root of 9 is just 3. So then at the very end, plug it all in. You've got your center right here, so that's just going to be x squared plus y squared equals 9. So there's your final answer. Which, I'll wait till you get this and I'll show you something. Are we good with this? Can I go on to the next page? All right. Going back to, here's what Joseph had kind of picked up on. If we drew this out on a coordinate grid, and we graphed those points, negative 3, 0, 3, 0, here's where he picked up, if this is the diameter, where's the halfway point? Right there, 0, 0. How long is the radius? Its radius is 3.
I'm good graphs.
But what if it were, I mean, it's real simple here because you can see the halfway point, but what if it was like, you know, right here and up here? You can't tell what that distance is right there, which is why I took you through the whole distance formula. Okay? So, but this one, you know, your radius is 3 and 3, and, you know, just, well, pretend like I went through that. Draw your circle. So you can always draw you a graph if that helps you out. You know, if you're stuck, say this is your EOC or final exam or whatever, and maybe you don't remember midpoint or distance, draw a graph and just try to work yourself through it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Okay? Alright, so now, let me just give you, turn these in. Let me just give you these back. That way, there's 10/8 on the back of them anyway. And then I'll just grade them at the same time. Was y'all's in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so 10/8 on the back of those. 10/8 on the back. Not real quick, no, I can't, but because you need to get the notes and everything, you need to go online and get the notes. Do your homework first and then you get that, so I'll make sure you get that one first. Yeah. Set out the origin with your work, just like that on the skills practice. Center at the origin.